Hey everybody, it's Master Gallengeist here, bringing you my review of the movie Shang-Chi and the Legend of the Ten Rings. And I really like this movie. Like, it's kind of crazy. It's like how much I didn't like Black Widow is like the reverse of what I've got here. It's just an overall fun movie and is a really good Marvel movie and kung fu martial arts movie. It ticks all the right boxes, and even though it goes CGI crazy at certain instances, you still get that kind of grounded feel as you see the fight scenes going on, and that's a very big thing for Shang-Chi, who's like one of the preeminent martial artists in the Marvel Universe. And I think this did a really good job of showcasing his character and what he could kind of bring to the MCU. And I think they did a really good job casting him because you have to always be careful when you're trying to find someone that can both act and do fight scenes convincingly. Sometimes you get ones that can act, but it looks completely like crap when they're trying to fight, or they can do the fight scenes very well, and it's like their acting is just nuts. That doesn't happen here. And Aquafina's character, I can understand that, like, some people could find her grating. I think that they did a good job of balancing her character to the point where she's able to do a lot of the jokes and everything going on without going overboard with them or going into South Park Tegrity Farms where the joke goes on too long. You've beaten that horse. Sweet dear Jesus, stop. That's, in my opinion, it doesn't go that kind of crazy with her. So we start off pretty much doing a nice kind of reconfiguring of the Mandarin character because they did the core kind of concept of it in the Marvel comics did start out with stereotypes, and it also doesn't help that within the comics the Ten Rings could very well be like analogous to what's going on with the stones, so them kind of transferring them into something kind of more martial arts like and compatible with like the character of Shang-Chi really kind of fits pretty well. And they still kind of make allusions to everything going on with that because we see that like 1,000 years ago this dude Wenwu got a hold of him, and of course there's various different legends. Some say it was a crater, some say it was a tomb. We don't know exactly what's going on with these things, but it grants immortality and great power like a god. And we see him like pretty much creating this army, smashing through kingdoms, and eventually going through and like changing history, toppling governments and all that kind of stuff. This isn't really that kind of crazy or retconny. There's always these kind of strange ass organizations in the Marvel comics, so I would put this analogous to like a Hydra organization around that's not Hydra or AIM. There's a lot of various organizations, so having this organization around doing these kind of things makes sense. So he's doing his shit. He's pretty much gotten to the point he's like he wants more power. So he tries to go find this mythical kind of place called Ta Lo, which has like mystical creatures, probably more access to his power. He then fights this pretty much guardian lady who is able to kind of go toe to toe with him. Now, granted, we do see the kind of differences in their fighting styles. His is a more aggressive kind of brute force kind of way to go through, and of course variously utilizing the rings in kind of different kind of combat scenarios. Hers is more of a kind of, how do I put it, a kind of like a free-flowing kind of use your attacker's energy against them kind of thing. And she's able to also then almost do kind of things kind of similar to Avatar The Last Airbender. She can't full force use wind, but she's able to like redirect kind of shit. It's really kind of like, whoa. And you're thinking, okay, what's going on here? And we see that he gets infatuated with her. Now, I'm kind of going through and kind of lumping this all together because it actually makes it for a little bit better way for me to kind of review it, because it is kind of sprinkled throughout the movie. Does that mean that the movie does it in a bad kind of style? Actually, no. I really have to hand it to them of how well done flashbacks and editing are handled to it, because there's a nice flow to the movie. It's like 2 hours and 12 minutes long, but I didn't feel that it was 2 hours and 12 minutes long or that it drug in any respect. Okay? That's on me. If you watch it, you could have a different kind of take on that, and it's completely valid. So he's trying to kind of, we see him kind of courting her and everything, and it's kind of crazy because she has a different kind of influence to kind of changing him on things. And we see that they kind of get together, he puts down the rings and kind of disbands his organization, goes and has a nice life. I mean, shit, we see that they have two kids, Shang and Xiaoling, their daughter. And it's another kind of thing that kind of helps me kind of connect with the character of Shang-Chi and that brother and sister relationship. Now, granted, not every brother and sister relationship is going to, like, get to me, but I'm like, oh, okay, that's something I can get with and understand. Because how this kind of works out at the end, if me and my sister's relationship kind of hands out like that, I'm going to have fucking problems. But we see them having fun. We see them playing fucking Dance Revolution. It's kind of funny. I'm like, oh, that's kind of cool. But we see that he goes off to do something, and of course his past comes up to bite him in the ass, because this Iron Gang's like, yeah, he fucking pretty much destroyed us, and we're gonna fuck your shit up. Of course, their mother sends them into the house, but we see that Shang-Chi is trying to, it's like, this isn't right. And he's looking through the window, and we see, first, she's getting ready to pretty much kick some ass. She doesn't have her powers because it's linked to the village, like a Heart of the Dragon kind of thing. It's not completely explained, but I understand that if you kind of leave the general vicinity, you don't have those powers. Well, at first you're thinking, okay, that's going to be a kind of tough fight for her. We'll kind of have to see how that goes. And then all these other people come in, and then, of course, when Wu comes back and sees that his wife is killed, and that sets him on his path. And he's like, nope, I should have been here. I should have had these rings. And him and Shang go, and we see him, like, go ruthless mode. Like, boom, 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 boom. Taking this dude out, trying to get some information, and then killing this dude. He's like, alright, that's gotta be paid in blood. And then starts training his kid, who's 7 years old, as an assassin. Gets him to age 14 and sends him on his mission to take out the dude who killed their mother. And it's crazy, because at first we're led to believe that he didn't do it, that he didn't kill him. But later on in the movie it's revealed that he did, and he felt such shame for this, he didn't come back to save his sister. He just went to America and tried to start again and forget about that. It's like, damn! And by the way, while I'm talking about this, later on in the movie, Wenwu kind of, like, pulls this shit of, like, why didn't you protect your mother? I'm like, he was a 7-year-old kid, and there's at least almost upwards of 20 guys pretty much coming to kill them. Her having have knocked enough ass to, like, stop them from killing your kids too says a lot about the amazingness of that woman. But trying to put the load on a 7-year-old child of, like, you fucker. No. And the thing is, he is a really interesting character. He's nuanced. He found love, of course, gave up his lifestyle, and then, of course, it came back to him, and he's like, fuck this. Alright, if you want me to be this monster, I'll be this monster. It's like, damn. And seeing how he kind of progresses as the movie goes on, it's like, oh, shit. So, we get pretty much to present day, which Marvel needs to fucking clarify. Because present day to us is now, 2021. Present day to the MCU would be 2023. Because this is after Endgame. There's a special scene at the end that really pretty much puts it why it's after Endgame. But, I digress. So, we see that Shang is pretty much going to his job, has this friend, Katie, played by Awkwafina, and that they're ballets, and we see this person roll up, he's like, I'm doing it. He's like, no, get out of here. Fuck this shit. But she's like driving it and all that. They decide to go out and sing karaoke and all that. It's like, okay, talk to, well, at first they talk to this one couple kind of friend as they're kind of low-downing information. It's like, oh yeah, she explains like how they got together, because one dude was pretty much being a racist asshole to Sean, as he's called at this point, and she pretty much goes up and starts singing Hotel California to kind of confuse the stupid dude and kind of diffuse the situation. That joke runs throughout the movie. Not a lot, not Integrity Farms beat the dead horse, but it works pretty well. And of course, their kind of friend pretty much tries to be like, "You got all these kind of talents and everything, and you're kind of wasting it. Why don't you kind of do something with your life?" I'm like, fine, fuck it, whatever. But then they go out and they start singing karaoke and all that. Well, they start trying to get to their job, pretty much taking the bus, and then this like group that's of course like the Ten Rings pops up to try and take his pendant. And he had also gotten a postcard from his sister, he believes, to figure out what's kind of going on. And we get this great kind of fight sequence in this train. And granted, it is a set piece, but it works very well because it showcases Shang-Chi's ability to kick ass and tactically think in a situation, as well as Katie to be like, shit's going real, and people are like, yeah, I can do all this kind of stuff, but at least I'm able to fucking know how to drive a bus in a very, very stressful situation. And that was really kind of cool as we get used to the character with the blade arm, Razor Fist. Of course, it's got to be named Razor Fist. Granted, it fits within Marvel Comics, but also fits within like action martial arts movies as well. But we see that Shang knows what he's doing. I like how even though there's like some CGI stuff going on and it looks a little bit weird on certain instances, it's not at the action points. Like they do as much as they can with like full hits that you're like, yeah, so that way you get that kind of visceral kind of thing that goes on, because that's kind of usually the point of these action and kung fu movies. I don't want to see somebody punching a tennis ball. I want to see someone utilizing their skills in an effective manner to get out of a situation, and Shang does that here as the bus kind of gets fucked up by Razor Fist kind of doing everything, and they're able to get people out. And what's funny is as this is going on, we got this dude live streaming, we're like, hey, look at this bus dude kind of like kicking all kinds of ass. It's like, shit, what the fuck's going on? So they kind of get to a stop. Shang's like, oh god, they took my pendant. Of course, he starts giving a little bit of his information to Katie, and he's like, listen, I gotta go to Macau. And she's like, fine, we'll talk about it on the plane. And then we see, of course, our information dumps going on. Now, even though they are information dumps and info dumps, they are at least executed in ways that are better handled and don't derail or drag down the narrative, in my opinion. Now, granted, if you see it, you might have a different kind of opinion on how that kind of works, but it worked for me. Like, he'd be talking about a certain thing, then we get to the plane, and we get this stupid little thing about beef or vegetarian, and then she kind of makes fun that his name is Shang-Chi, and that he essentially just changed the name to Sean, and she's like, yeah, that's like someone whose name is Gina changes her name to Gina. You're not really working that hard to kind of like keep your shit secret. So they get to Macau because he is trying to find his sister, and that was kind of like the last location. And we see them kind of get up. He has to sign this thing, and he gets kind of pulled into this like underground fight club thing. So this dude's pretty much explaining it, and he can't really back out now. But who do we see? We see the Abomination, who we have not seen since the Incredible Hulk movie, actually played by the same person, even though we don't really hear that much of him, fighting Wong. And it's like, at first you're like, why would Wong be doing this? It's like, they kind of need money, and I could see him kind of do it, and evidently they've kind of like rigged it to a certain extent, and that Wong's like, I told you to practice so you could pull your punches, and evidently he's able to like do the kind of magic portal thing, puts him back into like his cage kind of thing going on. I was like, huh, that's kind of interesting. Well, then we see that Shang goes and fights his fight because he's busboy and he's on the main stage, and he fights with his sister. Now, we do see that Shang gets kind of beat up here, gets beaten by his sister, but his objective is that he doesn't want to fight her or hurt her. But of course, he left her, and she's got resentment over that, and she's like, yeah, I'm doing my own thing, and she like whoops his ass. But he gets brought back in, and she kind of gives the information. She's like, hey, Dad wasn't going to give me the Empire, so I decided to make my own. And he's like, then why did you fucking send me this? I didn't send you that. And of course, we see that she's got an other pendant as well that is linked to Talo, and they're like, oh shit. So then the father bops off. We see that they try and escape and everything, but the sister is like, fuck you, man, and kind of goes on her own. Shang-Chi is like, hey, come on, Katie, let's go out on this kind of rickety-ass thing, and they're trying to escape as the Ten Rings organization tries to, like, take them out. Uh, Shang does, of course, another great fight scene. We see that Katie utilizes the Hotel California kind of thing as she starts randomly singing to try and throw the dude off. Works for a little bit as then he tries to like take her out, but his sister pops up, Zhai Lang, and helps him out during this. And the thing is, her pendant gets taken, and we see that when Wu pops up, like, son, time to come home. And so he brings them all, and we, of course, get a little bit more information, and he believes that he is talking to his dead wife, and that the Talo village has her locked behind a door. And, of course, as we were seeing in the flashbacks, there's this, like, moving maze that would pretty much eat anybody that is in the maze to protect the village, and that once a year there'll be an open kind of pathway. And Shang is just like, you crazy man, and he fucking gets knocked out, and they both get put in, all three of them get put in this kind of prison place. Now, even before this, we also then got Wenwu talking about the absurdity of calling a villain the Mandarin and everything, like chicken and orange and all that, and how this dude in America utilized that and tried to use his power and his influence, which you can tell kind of pisses him off. Now, granted, it's not like a high-level piss off, like, motherfucker! But it's like, you arrogant little fucking nut. I got you. But it was kind of cool talking about names and all that at that dinner table before things got completely fucking nutty. Why is that important? Because they then start hearing shit in their kind of dungeon cells, and we see that he has captured Trevor Slattery, who had played the Mandarin in Iron Man 3, and then he was broken out and pretty much held as prisoner, and when we was pretty much going to kill him, but he then started using his Macbeth and as acting skills, and I'm like, oh yeah, they pretty much have him as a jester. And I'm like, okay, that's definitely an interesting kind of thing. And then we see that there's this weird little fucking thing that has no face walking around that he calls Morse. He's like, oh, you guys can see it too? Oh, it lives in that village thing and could kind of like guide you through there. It's like, yeah, it's a convenient kind of plot thing, but evidently when Wu had captured it, when he had went there at the forest to begin with, so it does make sense that if he's interested in the power, he would take a creature with it. And it's like, yeah, I could kind of take you guys there. It's like, it's fucking weird. And they're like, all right. Well, Zhai Lang was able to pretty much utilize the tunnels that she had used to escape the first time. They're able to utilize a car that was Razorfist's car to get out. We get a good kind of action scene as they're kind of fighting through the car. It's not as frenetic and kinetic as other ones, but that's because of the enclosed spaces that they kind of have to go through. Well, they're able to get through. We get a little bit of Trevor's backstory, and that the reason he wanted to be an actor is because he saw Planet of the Apes, and he thought that they were actual monkeys that were acting in Planet of the Apes. And he's like, if somebody could get a monkey to figure out how to ride a horse, to act like they're riding a horse, he could be an actor. And it's like, you do you, man. And it's really kind of weird, because I could understand having strong opinions on Trevor's character, and I was just really surprised. I'm like, wow, this dude's kind of weird, this dude's kind of funny, but I don't actively hate him. His comedy doesn't overpower or change up things too crazy. And it's like, yeah, just wait, the Morris will tell us when to go. He's like, oh yeah, go. And we see them kind of course, do their kind of thing as they get through. One of the cool bits, though, is that we find out that this Talo village is in another dimension, so we start kind of like expanding out our world of going to other dimensions and how that kind of affects what's going on in the MCU. And we see that they go through this waterfall, and it does a portal that is similar in how it opens up to how we've seen the sling rings with the wizards for Doctor Strange. I'm like, ooh, yeah. So they kind of get through, and we see all these kind of like mystical creatures from like Chinese legends, and that's really kind of a cool. I love when other mythologies are delved into for other cultures, because I always love learning about that shit, and seeing all these different kind of creatures was pretty awesome. Now, granted, they can't really expand on that too much, except for what we get mainly for the dragon and what's going on here. So they get in there. The people are like, hey, screw you. But we see that their aunt, Nan, pops up, and she's like, "Yeah, welcome home." And Trevor's like, "Yeah, I mean, no harm, come in peace," kind of shit. And we find out that this village is pretty interesting. They've got pretty much like dragon scale weapons and armor, and that she first takes them to their kind of funeral tribute to their mother to like say hello and everything. And I kind of like seeing that kind of aspect of different kind of funeral rites for different kind of cultures. It's like, okay, cool. And then she gets into what's going on. Like in this dimension, they were technologically advanced and everything, and they had vast multiple cities and really kick-ass shit. However, this one being the Dweller in Darkness popped up and started wrecking shit like a motherfucker. And they, of course, kept trying to stop it, but they weren't able to push back on it until the Great Protector, the dragon that, like, protects the village and all that and provides them the dragon scales, helped push it back and create this dark gate to seal the Dweller in Darkness behind. And that's pretty much the true main villain here. And I understand there's kind of misdirects and everything, but this is kind of important because this goes on the level of like Dormammu, eldritch kind of horror things. And it gets fucking freaky. And it's like, shit, I'd have been fine with just complete straight ass kung fu movie. This has that and all this other shit going on. I was like, oh god. Well, of course, we start seeing a little bit of a training montage. Now, granted, it's really truncated here. We see that Zhao Ling is given like her own kind of stuff to kind of like work through. We see that Shang-Chi trains with his aunt and how he has to accept kind of both halves of himself. How his like the gifts that he gets from his mother and the gifts that he's got from his father synthesize that yin and that yang to be at like peace and be himself. As he then starts to kind of get a handle on his mother's kind of style of fighting. And that's cool. I really like that and that kind of thing with his character, as he, of course, then confesses to Katie that he did kill the person and how he was very uncomfortable with that. And it's like, damn. That whole kind of Red Ledger kind of thing. It's like, all right. And this is important because we then start seeing his kind of synthesis of these different kind of fighting styles of the utilizing the attacker's energy against them while also utilizing the power of himself and more kind of brute strength on certain things. So it's like, ooh, okay. While we also see Katie pretty much figuring out how to essentially be barred from The Hobbit, dragon-wise, with a bow and arrow. I'm like, okay, her learning how to shoot accurately enough for like a certain pivotal scene. I'm kind of like, I understand the plot demands it, but they are trying to give her own little arc, even though it's like really accelerated and doesn't. It's just at this bit, but we're showing that like she's just doing what she can, because she even recognizes like, yeah, if I don't pick something up really quick, I just kind of like drop it or whatnot, and she kind of sticks with it this time. It's like, okay, cool. Well, the father pops off and is able to get there. He's like, screw this, I'm going to go to that dark door because my wife's behind it and I'm going to get her out of it. And that, I like that motivation. Even though it sounds simple, Wenwu's trying to go get his dead wife. It's a motivation that you understand why this person does these horrible things, but it's not a completely nutty or stupid fucking thing. He is being tricked, oddly enough, kind of similar to certain Destiny things going on. The video game, it's like, oh god, you always gotta watch out for what's telling you certain things, and you gotta verify that shit. But it's like, you feel for the dude. Road to hell is paved with good intentions. He wants to save his wife, and then we see what goes on. Well, we get the kind of battle scene between Wenwu's forces and, of course, the village's forces. And there's some pretty good stuff there. We see Shang tries to stop him as much as possible, but he's able to overpower him because he first thinks he's got to kill his father and is trying to take him out, but he's able to utilize the rings too well and pretty much thunder punches him down into the water and kind of leaves him there as he then jumps over and starts utilizing the ring to like blast through the dark gate. Now, it doesn't break right away, and we see these little creatures pop out, and these freaky motherfuckers steal souls to go power up their big boss, the Dweller in the Darkness. It's like, that ain't good. And see, here's the thing. If you don't utilize those dragon scale weapons, You don't kill those motherfuckers. And it's funny because Razor Fist's like, we're not working together with you. The minute the one masked ass dude that we've seen that's like a badass dude, kind of a typical hallmark of martial arts movies, gets his soul eaten and taken away, he's like, yep, we're gonna work with you guys. Snaps some stuff on and everything. We see that Shang gets in contact with the Great Protector as it flies him up and is able to recognize his Heart of the Dragon. And we see Shang-Chi and his father. Damn it, I know I've been kind of flip-flopping between how to pronounce that, but it's just, I'm trying to get used to it. As he's trying to stop him from blasting through this door. And that's, of course, what he hits him with, you should have protected your mother. This is stupid. But we see them trying to fight through, and we see that Shang is able to pull 5 of the rings towards him. And they actually answer to him as they change in color from Wenwu's blue to his, what do I want to say? Orangish yellow? Let's say gold. And it'll be interesting to see if we learn what that means, if that is accurate to their kind of like aura signatures or whatnot, kind of similar to like Dragon Ball or whatnot. Which, by the way, I love the Dragon Ball references that they have in here sometimes, because his one jacket had like Goku's colors, and a Kamehameha is referenced later on at the end of the film. But we see that he is able to get the rings onto his side, and he was about to kind of like blast him at his father to kill him, but he decides not to. He's like, screw that. But then we see that the Dweller of Darkness pops out, pretty much is this ugly ass eldritch dragon thing monstrosity, but it kind of fits. We have a good dragon on one side, we have a bad dragon on the other, and they're fighting for dominance and control of what's going on. Well, Wenwu gets captured by the Dweller in Darkness and has his soul sucked, but not before he bequeaths the rings to Shang-Chi. And he gets those, and he's trying to figure out what's going on. It's like, oh shit. And he tries to help the Great Protector kind of like take this thing out. They almost try and pretty much take it out, but it gets powered up with enough of the souls that it starts to kind of overpower and almost tries to suck a dragon's soul out. I want you to understand that kind of sentence. This being is so powerful that it has the ability to suck a dragon's soul out. Now, granted, I have played Skyrim. I like Skyrim. And you fight and you've done sucking dragon souls, but that is a big kind of thing. And having a dragon soul like that, especially with what it is able to have done in protecting this village and providing them weapons, holy fucking shit! Oh my lord, that would not be pretty. No, it'd be bad. So what happens? Katie is able to shoot it in the throat to kind of stop it, and Shang-Chi and his sister are able kind of to work together to protect the Great Protector and get into a position where they're able to kind of trap it, and he pretty much uses the rings to go inside. Well, he doesn't go inside, but he throws them inside, makes them into a formation, and blasts that motherfucker apart. Now, I do not think that this... I can understand why people would be saying this is a power scaling issue, but if it had a soul similar to the dragon, I don't think that would have been as easy for Shang-Chi to do to kill it, and it was still weakened, and they're like, why wouldn't they have done that before? Maybe they didn't have access to those kind of rings to be able to pull off that kind of maneuver or that kind of weaponry to do that at that point if they had been worn down by the Dweller in Darkness's other forces. It's just like, holy shit, that thing got chunked up, motherfucker. And we had also seen that Trevor Slattery, Trevor and Morse, of course, are surviving. They were both kind of playing dead. I'm like, that's kind of funny and cute. So they're kind of worked out together. They were able to do that, and so they kind of go back into the world. Shang thinks that his sister is going to disband the Ten Rings organization. I say think because we've got, of course, the after credit scene, and we see that they kind of go back into the world. They, of course, say goodbye to their aunt and everything. Everything's kind of like set up and better. I mean, granted, they've gotten losses. They, of course, send off their lanterns to guide their fallen family to their ancestral resting places and all that as the Great Protector circles around as well. And we see that Shang-Chi has the 10 rings now. And that is important because we get towards the end and we see that they, of course, tell this to the couple and they're like, what the fuck? You lying out your ass. What happens at the end? Wong opens up a circle, like, hey, you Shang-Chi, we gotta need to talk about shit. It's like, what? I didn't do shit. Well, he didn't say that, but I'm like, well, but granted, if like an Avenger like that pops up, I'd be like, ooh, pick me, pick me. So he's like, yeah, you come too. I was like, ooh, okay. So they both go in, and they're in the Sanctum Sanctorum, and who do we see? We see that Bruce Banner, yes, Bruce Banner, not Professor Hulk, still with his arm in a cast. So it's like, oh shit, he must have figured out that he might not be in the complete powerhouse form that he needed to be as the Hulk, as Professor Hulk. It's like, okay. And Carol, and they're talking about what's going on with those rings, because evidently when they were utilized during that fight, it was sending off a beacon. And we see that it is not vibranium, it is not Chitauri. Carol doesn't have complete answers on it. It's like, okay, cool, we'll just have to look at this. And it's cool kind of seeing Shang-Chi introduced and brought into the Avengers world for this. And Carol's like, oh, I gotta go finish something. Bruce has my number. I don't have her number. Welcome to the circus, guys. And just seeing Banner kind of back again like that was kind of really cool. I'm like, okay, I can't wait to see this. And they're trying to figure out kind of what to finish off with next. And so, yeah, you could go and do whatever you need to. And it's like, we see that they all three go and they start singing karaoke, Hotel California. I'm like, all right, that was cool to end their way. I'm like, yeah, they're friends with Wong. I'm like, yay! That's cool. I like Wong's character anyway, because I like his character in the MCU and also in the comics. Now, granted, he's a little bit... I mean, granted, he's kind of serious, but he's also able to have his more funny moments in the MCU. But it was kind of cool to see these two characters' introduction into the craziness of the Avengers and that kind of world. It's like, yeah, they beat, like, a fucking eldritch monstrosity. You don't do that shit every day. Unless you're Doctor Strange or in the Avengers. So, welcome to that. So that's where their part ends. Then we get to the end and we see that Zhai Lang has decided to just take over the Ten Rings organization and make it her own. It's like, okay, we'll have to see how that kind of works out for you. And we are shown that the Ten Rings organization will appear again. So we could potentially be seeing a lining up of various different factions like Hydra, the Ten Rings, whatever the Countess is doing, kind of maybe working together as an anti-Avengers force or their own kind of Avengers force, Dark Avengers or whatnot. I'm just spitballing here, but I'm like, okay, we'll have to see how that kind of works. So I overall really enjoyed this movie and really liked how they did everything. Pacing, editing, action sequences. I didn't think it dragged at all. I could understand why certain characters will annoy people. I've got no problem with that, but I did not get any annoyance from them, and I'm like, it's really kind of weird. Only one that was kind of maybe a little bit iffy for me was Zhai Lang's sister character. They maybe needed to do a little bit more to like make her work a little bit more organically, maybe. But other than that, I really have. I really like this one. I really enjoyed this one, and I can't wait to get this one to have in the Marvel collection. I'm like, yeah, all right. I was really happy because it's been a while since I've had a good martial arts action movie, and it was good to see another good kind of Marvel movie. I'm like, okay, now that doesn't mean I still do not have reservations. I think I was like, okay, I saw Black Widow. Not that I think that everything's going to be bad, but I'm like, okay, let's see how this works out. And I had my expectations. I'm like, all right, let's see how this works. I'm like, all right, cool. So I'm always going to be like, I'm not going to say that like all Marvel movies are going to be good or all Marvel movies are going to be bad. I'm like, all right, I've seen some good Marvel movies like this one, and I've seen some bad Marvel movies, and I'm just going to keep my expectations in check and like watch the movie and see how it kind of goes. So I would definitely recommend this. Granted, there are scary moments for little kids, especially when we start getting into the eldritch monsters that are sucking out souls. But yeah, I definitely recommend this. So those are my opinions on the movie. Tell me what you guys think in the comments below. If you liked it, if you didn't like it, if you agree with me, if you disagree with me. Also like and subscribe, and I hope you have a good day.